Well, sometimes you need a break. I mean, I gave up on my book, Big Girl, Small Town. I remember crying and saying, I can't get it published. I can't crack this. And my friend said, it's okay to quit. And initially, I felt a great deal of relief. I don't know, I'm very instinctive. Somehow the energy felt like it was still there and I needed to use that up. And I'm really glad I did. Hi, I'm Michelle Gallen. I'm a writer from the north of Ireland. I have 2 books out now. My first book, Big Girl, Small Town, was shortlisted for the Costa First Novel Award, along with many other awards. My second book, Factory Girls, was just out this year in the summertime in the UK and Ireland and is coming soon to the USA. So I wrote most of the book in 2006 in just 1 month. I wrote 70,000 words in 1 month, but I'm a bit distractible. So it took me another 3 years to finish like a draft that I felt that I could take to publishers and agents. And I took it to all the publishers and agents in Ireland and just got a straight no. I didn't get any feedback, any interaction. It was just a straight no. And then I decided, well, I'm going to try London. I'm going to try New York. And I actually got a lot more interest from agents and publishers in London and New York. But they kept coming back to me and saying, you know, we love the world, we love the characters, we love the dialogue, this is great writing, but what's wrong with your main character, Majella? Like, why is she like that? And I was like, there's nothing wrong with my main character. Like, there's nothing wrong with Majella. Well, Majella is she sees the world a little bit differently to most people, right? Majella is someone who's not afraid of her body and she's not afraid to think what she thinks. She's not afraid to be different to other people. And even though she's a very quiet person who generally doesn't say much more than she has to say to serve you fish and chips in a chip shop, she's a really rich inner life. There was another challenge in that I was writing about Northern Ireland, and I was writing about a place that people only knew for violence and for bombs and for guns. And they had this sense that the traditional narrative of Northern Ireland was a man with a gun and a bomb running away from some soldiers. And this book was really not about that. This book was about the legacy of violence and the legacy of borders, like what you feel like whenever you're this society that people have judged and found to be not as good as, you know, proper society. Oh, Factory Girls is my second book, and it features 3 girls who've all left school and they're waiting for their exam results because the exam results give them the right to go to university. You just don't get to university in the UK or Ireland. You need to earn the points. So while they're waiting for the results, they decide to take a job in the local shirt factory. And of course they think, hey, we'll just earn some money and it'll be a bit fun. But what they didn't really realize is they're Catholic girls who've been to Catholic primary school, Catholic secondary school, and now they go to this shirt factory, and actually it's a mixed environment where they have to work with Protestants. And so for the first time they're meeting these people who've been like the other, they live side by side, but they've never met, they've never been friends. Their shops are separate, their schools are separate, their social lives are separate, but suddenly they're in a factory and have to work together. And then, of course, the factory boss isn't who he says he is, and the girls end up in this really dramatic it's almost like a crucible, all the things happen over the summertime and they're forced to make these choices that probably will have an impact for the rest of their lives. So this was a book I very much wanted to write back when I was 23, but it just didn't happen. It's really hard to get into publishing. If you've no connections, it's quite a traditional kind of business. I'm going back to 1998 here. I was an Irish girl from a troubled town. I didn't have a lot of connections to get me started in London. So I paid to do a master's in publishing. And when you do your master's in publishing, the companies know that you are well trained and you have a good grounding in publishing. So that's how I got my way into my job. But then after that, I had a brain injury, so I kind of had to leave London and go back to my hometown and learn how to live again, learn how to basic skills like reading and writing and, making my own food and stuff, everything. Oh, it was a full year at home, and even after I left home, I wasn't really capable of living independently, but I moved into a flat with one of my best friends down in Dublin. And when I moved to Dublin, I managed to get into like a rehabilitation program for people who'd been very, very sick. And that gave me enough money to pay my rent and a little bit of money for food and stuff. But the important thing was it gave me a work structure where I had an office to go to, and I had a boss who gave me work. And even if I wasn't capable of doing work, I had a reason to get up in the morning and a reason to try and do something. I think I'm still dealing with it. I think I'm trying to write a memoir which talks about it, but I still find it really difficult. I mean, it's quite a traumatic thing to be 23 years old and to be this person, this shiny graduate with a photographic memory in the world at your feet. And then the next day you've got your mum feeding you, egg and toast, and you have nothing, and your friends lose patience with you and people drift away. So I worked very hard to rebuild my life, but I think I have things I still feel very sad about. I'm still sad that things changed so dramatically when I was 23. And I would like to think in the next year or two, I might have more strength or more space to maybe look back at that time and see what it means. 2 lessons, and I'm very hesitant to say don't quit, because sometimes I think it's really important to know when to quit something that's not working. I mean, I worked in tech for a long time. I did several startups, and I'm not a quitter. I'm someone who does things for way too long, whether that's relationships or startups. So actually, I think learning when to stop is a good thing. But in this case, somehow I always believed in my book, and I always believed that Big Girl, Small Town had something to say that hadn't been said in my country. And I was really determined to try and get that out. So it's not that I didn't quit, I couldn't quit. When I write about Northern Ireland, I mean, it's really just a stand-in for conflict. It's really like, I grew up kind of, I mean, if you think about it, like you're growing up in wanting to be part of a country, the Republic of Ireland, but you're, being administered or occupied, or, you've got the British Army on the streets, you have people telling you your national identity isn't valid. We also had the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches as well telling you what you could and couldn't do. And so much of what I write about is the idea that you can't self-articulate, that it's so hard to become who you are if you've all these controlling forces, all these authorities, all these kind of institutions telling you, you can be this, but you can't be that. This is good, but that's bad. Be this person and we'll accept who you are. And my books feature people who are either trapped in these kind of dynamics or people who are trying to escape. And I think there's an awful lot of places in the world where people aren't really being who they are or becoming who they could be because they're being squashed or contained or, corralled by various forces in their life. Oh, good questions. I think we're in this difficult space in Ireland and the UK, and Northern Ireland's kind of caught in the middle, okay? So we have the United Kingdom, which has left the EU and has chosen to leave Europe. And the people of Northern Ireland voted overwhelmingly to stay in Europe. Like our region wanted to stay in Europe. And part of that is for the protection of being in the EU. Not to feel, Europe's kind of like the teacher in the room or something. And you feel safer with them there. And so Ireland has stayed, the Republic of Ireland has stayed in the EU. And at the minute you have the UK and Ireland diverging paths, and Northern Ireland is caught up here in the middle. And there is this sense that the UK is kind of falling apart. Scotland is seeking independence. Northern Ireland is in a conversation for the first time seriously, I feel, in 100 years. We're talking about unification. How can we unite the island? And one of my big concerns about that is there's almost this very old idea that 100 years ago the island was divided. The North stayed with the British and the South became independent. And I feel we haven't had a conversation about what reunification would look like, because Ireland 100 years ago was a very different place. It wasn't ethnically or racially diverse. a lot of mistakes were made in the Republic of Ireland. Northern Ireland is famous for, its conflicts and its violence and everything. That it was an engineered state that never quite worked. But the Republic of Ireland was given independence and a free, carte blanche to do whatever they wanted, and they managed to mess it up. There was a lot of stuff they got very badly wrong. And the idea that we would unite Ireland simply by saying Northern Ireland doesn't exist and we just join the Republic of Ireland, I feel misses a big opportunity to say, actually, let's just forget about both of those entities. And how can we create a new island, one that accepts a British loyalist tradition in the north of Ireland, one that accepts a Northern Irish community of nationalists who've been through a lot of conflict and trauma. How can they be integrated into a whole island? How are we going to integrate and accept the refugees that we have now in the country? How do we accept all the people who've immigrated to Ireland for the economic and cultural opportunities? And I feel that if we could kind of not forget about Northern Ireland and forget about the Republic, but try and imagine something different and better and something much bigger, that would be really good for our country going forward. What's interesting to me is I don't think of myself political because I never had a party I could believe in. There was no Green Party. I cared about the, endangered species and I cared about the Amazon, but when the people came to knock at your door, they were like, we want the nationalists to be in power because we deserve it. And I'm like going, yeah, let's, the planet. But now when I read my books, I think they are quite political, but in a way that comes at it not engaged in the kind of polarized politics, but actually going, here are the actual things people care about, and here are the things we want to change, and here are the things that matter to our lives. So it's the politics that we might need to address rather than the politics we've been embroiled in for far too long.